All right, everybody, welcome to New York's #2 sports show. It's producer Casey here, as always, with Mr. Derek Fask. And here we are yet again with the Jets losing 29-6, getting blown out by the New Orleans Saints, while the Giants lose to the Minnesota Vikings 16-13 in a relatively close game, although Jackson Dart only threw for 40 total yards on the game, which is, very surprising. But, if you really want quality football, you should probably tune into all the other games that were going on in the NFL this week, except for the two that involved the New York football teams. But, here we are, Derek. I mean, New York football, as lousy as it can get.
Yeah, it's so bad. Right now, and a lot of conversation, it's been in my head the whole time, and we'll discuss the games. I mean, maybe a little more so in a little more detail, the Giant game. But yeah, Giants sit right now at number one draft order wise, with what we'll discuss after we get through this Viking game, the Giants Raiders game, which has kind of been circled as a very likely, kind of whoever loses gets the number one pick. Now, again, it's not guaranteed. Well, because there's some actually easy type last week matchups for both teams that have kind of come about in different ways. But the Jets right now, I believe they're number four. I believe
Correct.
right now it's the Giants, the Raiders, the Browns, and then the Jets. Then I believe the Cardinals are number Cardinals and Titans are 5 and 6.
Yep.
So I believe there's 6 3-win, no more than 3-win teams. I believe there's 6 of them. Anyway, was very pleased with the fact the Giants lost. They continue to be an absolute embarrassment. I mean, JJ McCarthy gets hurt in this game. There was tons of injuries on both sides. It was one of those sort of classic, gloomy late, sort of December MetLife games where it felt like players were dropping like flies on both teams.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of injuries kind of going in on both sides, I'd say. Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle, he was out for the Vikings. They had a couple guys they put on IR on the defensive side. And for the Vikings, they were coming in on a 2-game winning streak, but they had just gotten eliminated. They won Sunday Night Football. We had discussed that last week against the Cowboys. And JJ McCarthy, the jury's out on him, but he has been looking a little bit better lately. And I thought he looked okay when he was in there. I thought he was okay. He wasn't great. I didn't think he was terrible. But yeah, I'm not sure where to begin here. Like you said, Casey, Jackson Dart, this was definitely his worst game, in his rookie season. 7 for 13, 33 yards, no touchdowns and 1 interception, only 2 rushes for 7 yards. It's a combination of a few things, I think. Like, Brian Flores is, we've seen it a lot. He's a great defensive coordinator. He was one of the final candidates for the Giant head coaching job in the, when they hired Brian Dable. And Brian Flores really made Daniel Jones' life a living hell week 1 of last season, if you remember. And that was really bad. And I think that Jackson Dart really was very flustered. And, but there's a lot that kind of goes into this, offensive line. There were some people out. John Runyon, the left guard, his wife was, I believe, in labor, so he missed the game. And Andrew Thomas, who's so important, he gets a hamstring injury, in the first half. He leaves the game. It was just bad all the way around, though. Didn't have a lot of time to throw, but also Mike Kafka's game plan was very, very run heavy, which I understand why he did that, but it was so. And he kind of denied that it was conservative, but he was very conservative. So not that Dart had a whole lot going even when there were opportunities, but man, it was just like nothing was going on. The Giants had no chance. The only touchdown they got was at the end of the first half. We'll talk about that, but just a little sneak preview. It was a Brian Burns sack fumble where JJ McCarthy gets hurt and actually leaves the game, and Tyler Newton recovers it for a touchdown. So just to show you how truly pathetic the Giant offense was in this game. And it just, that was kind of the one thing that you could kind of, hold your hat on was, well, the Giants for a while were doing the job, offensively at least, looking exciting.
Yeah.
There really hasn't been the case the last few weeks. And, you could attribute it to, I don't know, this is why I was saying when Brian Dable got fired, as much as he deserved it, this is proof it wasn't a Dable issue. This team sucks. And Kafka, honestly, he's not head coaching material. He's simply not.
No.
Could he be an offensive coordinator? Yes, he could be. I think that's reasonable to say, but certainly not a head coach. The Giants end up with technically based on team stats, we said that Dart threw for 33 passing yards as a team, 13 passing yards. And they were basically, they were trailing like basically the whole game. And that is crazy. That's almost Jet Bronco levels.
I was going to say, I mean, you're very close to -10.
Right. I mean, really, really pathetic. So yeah, like basically this game, the Vikings were in control for most of it, but it really was in jeopardy. And again, like I've been all in on the Giants losing, just the way it is. Like, of course, I want to see certain, individual people do well enough. Like, for example, Abdul Carter, he's been pretty good lately. Like, he had another sack in this game. Like, he has turned things around a little bit. Obviously, there's only 2 games to go, and it's been overall a disappointing season. But hey, like, better that he do that than just continue to not make an impact. Where, like, just as like Dexter Lawrence, for example, I don't see him really do much of anything a positive. I know they're 2 totally different players, one being a rookie, one being a veteran, but just want to make a comparison. But yeah, man, like Vikings get off to an early field goal beginning for their first drive, and Jordan Addison had a drop in the end zone. So really, it could have been 7-0 right off the bat. One thing I want to mention: Kayvon Thibodeau officially out for the season, and what ends the disappointing year for him. He must have played about, when it's all said and done, he must have played about half the season. Ends up with 2.5 sacks, got off to a pretty good start, but then when he was still healthy, he kind of slowed down a little bit. I don't know what his future holds. Like, will they pick up the 5th-year option? I don't know. Yeah, just wanted to, update that. So Thibodeau is done for the season. Vikings take that 3-0 lead. And then Giants end up, again, the Giants really didn't move the ball a whole lot in this game. I mean, early on, there were actually some pretty decent Tyrone Tracy runs. There was. And there were some pretty key, like, roughing the passer penalties that were correctly called. I feel like, what's helmet to helmet? One of the, some were more egregious than the others, but the rest were protecting Jackson Hart, and that did kind of help the Giants move the ball a little bit in certain spots, but ultimately Dark had sat at on a 4th and 5 at the 10. So, again, when you're at the time 2 and 12, you're going to go for these sorts of things, and 4th and 5 at the 10, they could have taken the field goal, they don't, and be sacked. Then J.J. McCarthy throws an interception on the next drive. Minnesota was moving the ball. They were having some success with Justin Jefferson, who's had a really rough season, but it's a ball that a little bit of a McCarthy maybe threw it too soon, and Jalen Naylor wasn't expecting it, and it goes off of his arms into the arms of Paulson Adebo. So Giants get an interception there. They don't have many of them this year, but they have more than bets, which is not saying anything. But yeah, so now we go to the second quarter. Giants have the ball, and ultimately, with that decent field position, they get a field goal. Ben Sauls, actually, the new Giant kicker, whose Younghoe Koo was released. So now we're on, I think, kicker 4, and Ben Sauls is a lefty. I think he's the first lefty kicker in the NFL we've seen in, I think, a while, like 7 years, they said.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, he was, he didn't have many opportunities, but the ones he did have, he was successful. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll just kind of run with him for the rest of the year. He makes a 27-yard field to tie it up by 3. Then Minnesota has a nice drive that they're unable to kind of finish off. And the big play on this drive that really could have flipped the script was there was a potential on a 3rd and goal at the 8 for Minnesota. Javon Holland looked like he got a 96-yard pick 6, which would have made it 10-3 Giants right there. But Abdul Carter was lined up offside. And so that ends up kind of being a 4-point swing because Minnesota ends up getting a field goal, 31-yard field goal for Will Reichert, makes it 6-3. And then Jackson Dart throws an interception off of the hands of Theo Johnson. Not much was going to happen there. It was 3rd and 15 anyway, but Theo Johnson, who has been better lately as far as not dropping the ball, but that's been a problem for him, and it was back again. We'll talk about someone later who has had just a horrific season, and the drops continue for him. But Minnesota gets that good field position, and they get their 1 touchdown of the game, and it is J.J. McCarthy with a 12-yard touchdown run. A lot of, look, the Giants defense, as much as it wasn't bad in this game, they still gave up like a decent amount of like third and long conversions and like second and long plays. Like it really wasn't anything to, it was obviously much, much better than the offense, but we're not talking about much here. Giants go 3 and out, they punt it away. And then look at this point, like the Vikings, I understand why they wouldn't just take a knee, but this really bothered me. Where it's like they were kind of going slow. Aaron Jones gets a 6-yard run. They're kind of going slow. Then all of a sudden they decide to kind of pick up the tempo a little bit. And JJ McCarthy absolutely gets blown the fuck up by Brian Burns. And it's recovered by Tyler Nubin, and he takes it back for a 27-yard run. So not only does that happen where it becomes Minnesota was in complete control of the game. If that doesn't happen, the game was totally over. But also, JJ McCarthy gets hurt. And so Max Brosmer, who we saw a few weeks ago in Seattle, looked really, really bad. But hey, I mean, he didn't make mistakes, and ultimately he was able to lead them to victory. Third quarter, actually only two possessions. Wow, that's crazy. Only two possessions. Why does that? That doesn't look right. But is that possible? Oh no. Take that back. It was kind of 2.5, I guess. But anyway, Giants punt out of the half. And then the Vikings punt as well. They moved the ball a little bit, but they end up taking Hawkinson gets a holding penalty, and it kind of sets them back. So anyway, Giants get the ball midway through the third quarter, and it's a pretty long drive. It was a 9-minute and 21 play drive. Of course, that only 14 play, 54-yard drive that only ends up in a field goal for the Giants. And again, at this point, like I had said before, Andrew Thomas has been long out of this game, so Marcus Bowe replaces him at left tackle. John Michael Schmitz, the center, also in the fourth quarter, I think, left the game with a hand injury, so Austin Schlottman came in. The Giants actually do a nice job where there's a 3rd and 16, and they ultimately get a first down, a 14-yard catch for Wan'Dale Robinson, an 8-yard catch for Darius Slayton. Jackson Dart eventually gets sacked, but then there is a roughing the passer penalty that does extend the drive for the Giants, and they are able to find a way to get a Ben Saul 39-yard field goal to tie up at 13. But that good old Giant defense, of course, immediately, it's not able to even get a stop. I should also mention that Cordell Flott left the game, and so Deontay Banks was in there, which is obviously always a disaster and just speaks to poor depth, which is a Joe Shane thing. So again, a lot of injuries potentially heading into this Raider game. But yeah. Let's see here. Aaron Jones was in and out of this game. I mean, the Vikings were already kind of depleted. They had offensive line injuries going into the game and during the game. And Jordan Mason left the game early. Aaron Jones was kind of in and out. He kind of gutted through it. And the Vikings converted a 3rd and 17 to Justin Jefferson, a 21-yard catch that kind of sets them up. There was a Dexter Lawrence defensive holding penalty that gives the Vikings a first down. There was a neutral zone infraction penalty on Dexter Lawrence, which helped them out as well. And the Vikings were able to kind of, again, grit their way. It wasn't pretty. They weren't able to finish this off with a touchdown, but ultimately they settled for a 30-yard field goal to give them a 16-13 lead. And then the Giants get the ball back. Really, the one thing that sticks out to me, I mean, it was the first time the Giants got via an illegal contact penalty on the Vikings, but there was a Darius Slayton drop that occurs, I guess, technically before that. So, but still, though, like if Darius, I mean, I don't know how he
another
dropped it.
drop. Wow, a shocker, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like I don't. It's one of the worst drops you'll ever see too. It's like it was right in his hands, and then just as he's about to start running, he just loses it. It's really unbelievable how bad he's been. I mean, a player that's had like a nice career, nothing amazing, obviously, and this is really, from my knowledge and memory, the worst season of his career.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it ends up where Jackson Dart gets sacked by Andrew Van Ginkel. And so at this point, it's after the 2-minute warning. The Giants have 2 timeouts left, and the Vikings are up by 3. And they just run the ball. And even on a 3rd and 8, where it's a long shot at this point anyway, but it's a 3rd and 8. There's like a minute and 50 seconds left. Aaron Jones is able to go up the gut for 9 yards, and that's all she wrote. First down. Brosmer is in victory formation, and yet again, the New York Giants lose. It's 9 losses in a row. They are 2-13 again, just like last year. Now they won last year versus the Colts in their second last game of the season, and so now it sets up for Giants Raiders. The Raiders actually coming off of a a very competitive. I mean, they've been really, in some ways, more of a laughing stock than the Giants. They actually were very competitive and lost to the Texans, but here we go. Giants at Raiders with so much on the line as far as draft positioning. And if nothing else, I really hope that these losses really just confirm that Joe Shane cannot be back. I mean, it's just, it speaks for itself.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, the writing's on the wall at this point. I mean, if that didn't happen, that would be malpractice. I understand that. Obviously, the Mara family is dealing with a lot with with the old man being sick and all and stuff like that. But I mean, you have to, something's got to give here. I mean, hand down control to one of your children or something like that, and let them take over this GM search or something like that. If things are too dire or something like that, you know what I mean? So. Something's got to give. And like you said, Derek, I mean, everything so much now rides on this game next week against the Raiders, even for, my team, the Jets, which we can get into now. But yeah, just insane. 9 straight losses for the Giants. And here we are. But I will, I guess, go ahead and just talk about my shitty team now. Let's go for it. So I'm not actually in my normal location here. I'm in one of my little like WeWork spaces. So I actually just wrote up on the wall, "The Jets suck," in whiteboard in my shitty chicken scratch handwriting, just to emphasize the point here as the Jets lose 29-6 to the Saints. Now, third week in a row getting blown out by a team, and basically another tough watch. I mean, it was, I'd rather watch, a nail be drove through a chalkboard basically than have to watch the Jets. But, I do enjoy talking about football with you, my man. And so, we made a commitment and we're going to stick with it. But man, I mean, only 2 field goals and both happened in the first half. So basically non-existent offense in the second half. And not to mention that the team that we just got blown out by is a Saints team that going into this game had only won 4 games. Granted, playing a little bit better, but still a 4-win team with one of the ones being against you and having no Alvin Kamara. And just like other people, just like many other teams at this point in the season, a lot of other injuries, but notably no Alvin Kamara, which just makes things worse. But just to talk about the quarterback quick, Brady Cook, look, he is what he is at this point. He's not going to, he'll stick on the team and be the 3rd string quarterback next year. But, 188 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 pick, 1 fumble. And the offensive line the offensive line had been better as of late in a couple of the past games here, but really ugly game for them today, giving up 8 sacks. And, some of them weren't Brady Cook's fault, but, the offensive line just wasn't there. 8 sacks, with a loss of 57 yards total. So pretty rough go around. And, the defense too. I mean, here we are with the defense again. Yes, we understand. No Sauce Gardner, no Quinny Williams. There's a lot of injuries on this defense, but Tyler Shuck, I mean, this guy looked like, he could be an MVP candidate, the way that he was playing out there. I mean, he threw for 308 yards and basically like the Trevor Lawrence game from last week. I mean, he could basically just sat in the pocket and was able to basically do whatever he wanted. This defense, yes, we did get a turnover, two games in a row with a turnover, which is pretty shocking. We did get it on the first drive. It was just a fumble by Taysom Hill, I believe, that was recovered by Stiggers, our cornerback. So that was nice to see, but look, no interceptions. This is, now 14, whatever it is now at this point, 15 games with no interceptions. We're basically going to, I think it's basically signed, sealed, and delivered that we're going to end the season with no interceptions, which is pretty unbelievable in itself. So, congrats to this defense. Like I mentioned, Shuck basically got to do whatever he wanted, and that included throwing the ball to Chris Olave and Jawan Jennings, and those two basically just tore up the Jets offense. And, Olave ended up with like 10 catches, 2 touchdowns. If you had him in fantasy, congratulations. And Jawan Jennings had about 8 receptions as well. And basically just they did anything that they wanted to do. And, just to remind everybody, this Saints team was a 4-win Saints team. Just unbelievable, bro. And it's just, like after everything that went down with the 0-7 start, and then there was that one little small period of where we won those 3 games within the 5 game span, and things were trying to trend in the right direction for us, just in terms of at least playing hard. But things have just taken a complete 180 in that regard. And now some of these wins, when you really think about the 3 wins that we had, I mean, we have one win against Dylan Gabriel, who's not even playing anymore. It might have been the worst quarterback this year, just on the field. We had a game that we won against the Bengals, but let's remind everybody, this was the Joe Flacco era of the Bengals. And we had some incredible luck in that game as well. And then the other win was against Kirk Cousins, but you could even argue that game, the tides turned in that game when we got that muff punt that happened, that basically we got the ball at the 1 and we're able to punch it in there. That kind of helped gain control of that game for us. So, a lot of fluky special teams things that led to the 3 wins. So, especially now with how bleak things are, you start looking at those wins and you're like, okay, trying to spin this in a positive light at the time. You're like, oh, wow, gritty, hard fought games. But now I'm like, well, what was it for, man? And, it's just like, I understand that this, I guess we just get big picture here because, like I said, there was really no offense to be spoken of on the Jets side of thing, only 2 field goals, and they were both in the first half. And that was all she wrote there. But just what did the Jets do with Glenn, man? I hate to be like this, but it just like, he doesn't really just have what it takes to match some of these really smart head coaches, especially like on the offensive side of the ball. He just looks so way in over his head in terms of managing a game and just having a feel for it. Just really bad. And obviously he didn't do himself any favors on how he handled himself at the start of the season, going 0-7 and having this like pompous, cocky attitude like he was Bill Parcells. And look, I get it that you played under the guy and you started your coaching career under the guy, but you ain't Bill Parcells, my friend. The fact that you put your chips all in on this Justin Fields reclamation project and was basically claiming that coaches like Mike Tomlin and even, the coaching staff at the Chicago Bears, they didn't know how to unlock Justin Fields' potential. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that he was saying at the beginning of the year, trying to hype up this guy, Justin Fields. And, obviously Fields had the worst, season of his career. And, I think is now going to be a perennial backup going forward because of how hard this went. So it's just hard, bro. It's like, how do we attract free agents? You know what I mean? Like I'm trying, I was thinking about this today. Like if I was a free agent, do you have any faith in this coaching staff? I mean, yes, we're going to probably have a shot at one of these quarterbacks here that are coming out in the draft here, but it's not looking good, man. Not looking good. Again, just everything that we had somewhat built feels completely gone. And there's been a lot of rumors too recently about, Mike Florio, I know, was talking about this on his show, and that Glenn might be one and done, but it's hard it's just a hard situation. I guess the Arizona Cardinals did it with Steve Wilkes that one year, right? With Josh Rosen, and they basically just said, fuck it and blew it up and drafted Kyler Murray and got Cliff Kingsbury. So, I look, if there was some kind of awesome offensive minded coach that somehow becomes available this offseason, would I be that disappointed if, the Jets pivoted towards that? I don't know if, I think I probably would be on board, especially, I'm worried that like we're going to have a Caleb Williams situation with his first year with Matt Eberflus, a defensive minded guy that looked like completely like he had no idea what he was doing, just couldn't handle having control of the entire team and having this rookie quarterback with all this promise. It's certainly going to be interesting, bro. And, like you mentioned, we're picking 4th now behind you guys, the Raiders and the Browns. And this game against the Raiders means everything because, the Raiders are absolutely in the market for Mendoza, and they will, they're going to keep that pick no matter how much we try and trade to them to take Mendoza. But look, the one, I guess the one silver lining is that, like, yes, some of the chips kind of fell in our favor with us picking fourth now, and not to you know uh bring light to an injury here or whatever, however you want to put it, but Gardner Minshew going down for the Chiefs, who are already obviously a banged up team, but now he looks like he's got his ACL torn. They're going to be on their third string quarterback. So there's a chance here that if, I guess, the Giants do pull out a victory against the Raiders, there's still an outside chance that the Raiders still could beat that Chiefs team week 18 here to close out the season. So just in terms of, probability here that, maybe the Raiders do steal a game. And like you mentioned, they played the Houston Texans pretty tough today. So you almost feel like they're destined to maybe get one more win here. So now that there's potentially two games here that could happen, bodes well in our favor. So we shall see, man. But it's crazy. I mean, basically now with this loss too, this is my last point before we can kind of just talk big picture here. You know, we got the Pats next here at home, which is basically going to be a home game for the Pats, and then we got Buffalo. So we're most likely going to end the season 3-14 again, which is only the third time in franchise history that's happened. One of the times being with the Kotite era, and then the one more recently with Adam Gase, where we were 2-14 because that was before the shift to the 17-game season. So yes, not really great company to be in if you're Aaron Glenn, especially with all all the talk this entire beginning of the year, and just the way that he has presented himself here. It is just a ugly turn of affairs here. So it's going to be interesting, bro. Got the all the big major, the college quarterbacks that are going to be coming out that might be first round picks here. Mendoza, I think there's been some rumors that more might be coming out now and declaring. So we will see. And then obviously Simpson as well. Those three quarterbacks got some big games coming up here in the college football playoffs. So, that'll be interesting to see here as well. Just how all those things kind of shake out here. And I guess to see, who would be interesting for the Jets to take.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
For the Jets, obviously a lot of good sort of news in like the draft capital of it all, and just
Yeah.
like with certain, like you said, the Titans, like
The
there was some good
Titans
stuff that
roll-
happened. The
Yep.
Titans won. But yeah, there's a bit of this back to just the reality of the Aaron, of just, and I was going to ask you, but you already kind of touched on it as far as like just, you ideally want to line things up for the regime with the QB. Look, I mean, as a Giant fan, like things aren't quite aligned there, where it was,
Yeah.
Shane Dable and then Dart, who, I'm pretty sure almost, he's going to be the quarterback moving forward. I mean, there are crazy things out there as far as Mendoza, but,
True.
taking that all aside, like, yeah, so I get that totally. And yeah, like you can't really feel great. Like, and I don't feel great as a Giant fan, but yeah, like if you're a Jet fan, look, like they really could have much less than three. I mean, yes, they did lose some games along the way. They could have won for sure, but they've been pretty much let them in their fair share of games. And maybe 3 wins is exactly where it kind of lands, kind of give or take. But like you said, like, yeah, those wins are not overly impressive. The only one to me that, despite it being Flacco and not Burrow, that at Bengals one was impressive to me. But like, yeah, like those Cleveland and Falcons ones were pretty freaking brutal. But yeah, what I also wanted to look up real quick is I guess there is a small chance that the Bill game, and again, it's kind of unlikely, but I suppose if New England, I'm looking this up, if New England beats the Jets, now luckily not that alone, because that's the first thing I looked for, but if New England beats the Jets and the Eagles beat the Bills in Buffalo, which I don't think it will happen, but crazy things have happened, then I think Buffalo may end up being in a spot where that last game versus the Jets may not mean anything at all. Again, like we'll have a better idea on that next week, but that's the weird things that you kind of deal with those Week 18 games. With the Giants, they're going to be facing an eliminated Cowboy team. So similar to the Raiders, the Giants, it's one of those things where I felt like last year too, that Colt game is, as upset as I was that the Giants had beaten the Colts, there was also part of me that was like, fuck, the Giants may just beat the Eagles the final week. Now, ultimately, they lost that game, but I guess the Giant Raider game, it's going to hold a lot of meaning. But like you said, Casey, like there is still one more week to go. And realistically, with Pat Mahomes going down, Gardner Minshew, and like I discussed the Giants situation,
Yeah.
it isn't a guarantee that even if one of those teams loses, that they're definitely not the number one pick. Another thing I want to bring up, and I guess we'll keep it to Raiders, Jets, but it involves the Giants too.
Yeah.
Strength of schedule becomes a very important thing. And that's the tiebreaker when it comes to the draft. It's very close between, like, let's talk about Vegas and the Jets. You want to have the lower strength of schedule. And I'm using Tankathon. That's like the good. You don't want to use the current strength of schedule. You want to basically have it be like the whole season, what the whole season strength of schedule would be. And if you look at that, the Jets have a 539 strength of schedule and Vegas 545. It's very close and it can fluctuate. So that's going to be a key factor as well. And it may get to a point where you're really going to have to do some in-depth rooting depending on certain situations. The rule of thumb would be is that you would want teams that the Raiders have played on their schedule, you would want them to win. And teams on your schedule, if you're a Giant or Jet fan, you would want them to lose. So again, that's going to be something that really might come into play here as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wild ride here. I mean, it's so much is gonna ride on this game next week against the Raiders, man. That is going to be. It's so funny, right? It's like that's gonna be peak cinema. Like that's like what we have to look forward to as New York football fans is like these types of games. Like this is like this is our Super Bowl. This basically what we've been accustomed to for the last 5 years and more, probably for my team at least. But
yeah, it is. Yeah. And with this game, I really feel, because a lot of the times I kind of, not that I feel like I'm in the minority, but I'm very vocal about my kind of just my rooting preferences, even not conventional. This is kind of one situation where I feel one with the fans, where I think everyone is rooting for the Raiders to beat the Giants.
We are all united on that front. That's great. I know.
I mean, 100%. And I'm feeling, and this is where it gets dangerous, I am feeling much better about those chances right now than I did before today's games even. And again, the Giants are still, as we're recording this, a very small favorite. They're 1.5 point favorite, where the Giants were favored by 3. It didn't change that much, but like, I think, look, the Giants did sustain some injuries in this game. Andrew Thomas being the most notable one. He did say he's going to try to play, but hamstrings are tricky. And the Raiders did look surprisingly decent. All that to say, it kind of feels like it is a little bit of a coin flip game. And I really, I mean, I'm going to be coming in the next week's episode. It's really going to be, not hiding anything, laying it all out there as far as really being very happy that the Giants were to lose and pretty damn devastated. The Giants win, but hey, you go into this game knowing that, look, these are two horrible teams that both of them have not gained losing streaks. There's the sad reality that you may win this game.
Yeah.
But see what happens.
It's going to be wild, but let's go Geno Smith. You know what I mean? You screwed us over as Jet fans when you were our quarterback. You got punched in the jaw. You mean that was, that's another, there's so much like Jet moments that one he's almost gets buried underneath all the other stuff. But let's not forget, Geno Smith got his jaw broken and had to miss the most of the season or whatever it was. So maybe you can redeem yourself, Geno. Just throw a couple to Brock Bowers. You know what I mean? Let's just, put the Giants away early. So there's no chance, man. But guys, that's really what we're looking forward to. I mean, as we kind of wrap things up here, huge game next week that's really going to, again, like we said, there are some opportunities in week 18 that could shake things up, but this one is going to really, solidify a lot of, I guess, feelings about where things are going to be trending here. So make sure to stay tuned for that episode. I think Derek and I will be recapping that. We'll probably get that episode out on Monday of next week. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And guys, just thank you so much for listening to the show. We are about at 2,100 subscribers and counting. We're steadily climbing here as, we've been these last few months and change here. So, as always, thank you guys so much. Derek always does the New York Rangers recaps as well as New York Yankees recaps when the season comes into full swing here in April. And we're still waiting on some off-season news here too as Yankee fans. It's kind of been a little bit of a dead season here. Really, if you want to just touch on this real quick, Derek, it seems like Cashman is kind of saying stuff about that. He feels like the team is kind of there already. I was reading something kind of like that here, that he doesn't really feel like there needs to be that many major changes here. Pretty wild.
Yeah, I don't expect to see much. I mean, look, like there's going to be some things that happen, obviously, like that's just the nature of it. There will be some things, right? And again, my mind is still like, what is up with Cody Bellinger?
I know.
Like, even beyond that, like, you'd like to see some new pieces and new legitimate pieces in here. Yeah, look, it's been quiet and it makes it very frustrating. I mean, obviously there's holes to fill here. I think a lot of the trade deadline movement was kind of an extension in a way of, I guess, this offseason. A lot of those moves, they weren't really rental. I mean, and the few ones that were, like, I mean, Rizar, they brought back, but like, not that they were amazing acquisitions, but like Bednar, Duvall, McMahon, these were people that were under contract for future years. This isn't me trying to defend anything. This is just saying the team does look a lot different than it did a year, like from opening day of last season.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like we said, we disagree with the Trent Grisham decision. Yeah, it's hard to feel like, you're frustrated right now if you're a Yankee fan. I think there's a little bit of impatience. I guess you could argue there's impatience and like, let's see what things look like in a couple months from now. But yeah, baseball off season's weird because the other sports, it all kind of happens at once. Baseball's a very slow move.
Slow burn for
and
sure.
There's a chance that we could still hopefully feel like somewhat okay about things. But yeah, like a lot of people are making moves around us and we're kind of just not doing a whole lot. And, really hoping that changes. I'm really hoping whether that be some trades, because I think trades, may be the main thing that we see here as far as Yankees, bringing in someone of real value. It probably won't be by signing someone. I think that Bellinger would be the only one. Even I don't know that it's going to happen. He's the only one that I really think out of the free agents that they would sign for better or worse.
Yeah, no, that's what it certainly seems like that. And I clearly the amount of years is the thing that's holding everything up, even for a team like the Mets as well, clearly, because I know obviously they've been, a prime target as well here for Bellinger, as they continue to just keep stealing people from us. So
unbelievable,
pretty wild. I mean, I don't think we were on the air when the Dreamweaver thing happened, but like, just incredible that happened. I could not believe that when I saw it.
Yeah, I did a short, obviously, for the Weaver move, and it's crazy, and,
right?
Like,
you did,
but then method, like again, it's not so much like it's crazy. And then the Met fans joke back, like, oh, like, because the Yankees, they re-signed Paul Blackburn, who, it's such an instinct. We're not, we're basically, it's hilarious because these were once significant people on the Yankees, right? Like, I think in most cases, we were totally fine with them not being with the team anymore. But like, Luke Weaver, we can go on and on, but it is crazy, man, that like, how many former Yankees who are literally just Yankees the prior season are going to the Mets. So, Luke Weaver was really amazing in that 2024 run and carried it into the beginning of 2025, and then really, really, really fell off in a major way to the point where, hey, we were ready for him to go. We were like, hey, as good as that was when it was good, and he could turn it back around. I think with him and Devin Williams, it was like, hey, good riddance. It just doesn't make sense to bring them back.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, and I mean, he was just never the same after that injury that happened in the beginning of the season, Weaver. So,
and I think, and I think that there was a tipping pitches issue that never got rectified. I think I was reading, Garrett Cole, people were bringing it up to him, and he wasn't. I don't think he was being combative necessarily, but I think it really. It continued to be a problem to the point where I think teams had a good read on what he was throwing, and it became a disaster in the playoffs. And he kind of acknowledged it. I think his confidence became shot. It really all just kind of fell downhill.
Yeah, it is a shame because Dreamweaver was beloved by this team. What I mean, so much more so than obviously Devin Williams. So it was so really sad to see him go, especially that one hurt, him going to the Mets for sure. At least for me, I was like, dang, like even though. Like we were saying, it was time for, we were kind of already go out west. Or exactly. So, but whatever, here we are. And let's just see what happens. But again, guys, thank you again for listening. It's producer Casey here with Derek. We appreciate you all, and we will talk to you next week.